two writers, one just starting out, the other a bestseller. Join James Blatch and Mark Dawson and their amazing guests as they discuss how you can make a living telling stories. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast with James and Mark on a dreary day here in the United Kingdom. We hope you're having a great week reading, writing and selling. And we should say, Mark, it's the 1st of November that we're recording this, which means, what does that mean in the writing world?
It means it was my birthday yesterday. What else does it mean?
It does mean it's your birthday. Quite an egocentric answer. It means it's NaNoWriMo today.
Oh, yes. NaNoWriMo, yes. There's a few things. It's NaNoWriMo today, and we've got a busy group of writers who are, getting started with their words, I guess. And also, Ads for Authors launches next week.
It does. It is a very busy week. And also, I'm off to Vegas to 20 Books, along with hundreds and hundreds. It's going to be a huge conference in Vegas. I'm looking forward to meeting loads of you there. I shall bring some pins and some money for drinks. And I've already got some interviews and chats planned with people while I'm there. And I'm presenting on live video on Thursday morning. If you want to watch that, it's going to be great. The NaNoWriMo, just on that for a second. So I'm actually going to do it as well. I've got myself into a position where I've really know where I am going for the next foreseeable, and I've said to my editor, we're just going to press on now. So probably 1,500 words a day, something like that. I'm going to do as a minimum through November, and that means in a couple of months my draft is going to be done, which is exciting. I think a lot of people use NaNoWriMo as a first draft, don't they? Then I've seen some screen grabs, there is a Facebook group. We've got an SPF Facebook group for NaNoWriMo. If you search on that, to support each other, and there's been some photographs people have posted of lots of post-it notes on a whiteboard, which is kind of mixing things up. But people ready to just to write, just to get that first draft down, which I think is what it's good for, right? Yeah,
that's a pretty good way to see it, I think. I mean, just a question of getting the words down, then the editing can come later. So I was going to do Nano, as I mentioned previously on the podcast, but because I started to use dictation, I've actually got 40,000 words of the book I was going to write already done. So I hopefully will use the time to finish a couple of things that I'm working on, including that one.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about your piece procedural. I'm going to give that a go when that comes out. Okay, good. Right, let's talk about today's guest. So she is a remarkable writer, a remarkable person. Her name is Octavia Randolph, which is a great name to start off with. And Octavia lives in the east coast of the United States, at least. We met her earlier this summer in July. We went to her house just north of Boston. And at that time, she was planning a move to an island off Sweden, where her books are based. And you'll see, if you're watching on YouTube from the interview, that Octavia is immersed in the fantasy, the epic romance stories, I should say, the epics that she writes. And she is somebody who has an interest in this area that goes beyond, I think, simply writing. She has a gift for telling stories and for writing. And what was just uplifting about this story was how independent publishing has made her career. It's allowed her to live this amazing life. And before indie publishing, in fact, she does reference you, Mark, I should say, in this interview, before you and your course and the learning that she got on board online, there was probably very little chance of a publisher picking up these books. And yet the result of her being able to find her readers has been transformational. So let's, without further ado, it's a really gripping interview. Let's hear from Octavia, and then Mark and I will have a chat off the back of that. Octavia, why don't you start by giving us the short form version of who you are?
Thank you, James, and I'm so delighted to be your guest this morning. I write historical fiction set in 9th century England and Scandinavia. I now have 7 books out in the Circle of Caradwyn saga. I imagine that this series will probably go to 10 or 12 books, particularly since my readers are always finding new things for me to write about, which is lovely. I began writing my first novel, book 1, in 1991. Had some very good literary representation for it. Unfortunately, the manuscript never found a home in New York City. And after many years of rejection, I just began continuing the story for my own sake. So I wrote what became a trilogy, really for my own pleasure. In 1998, I created a website, octavia.net, and just started publishing the books for free on my website because I was so frustrated with the rejection I was receiving from traditional publishers. Lo and behold, there were readers online for my work, and it was encouraging, but I still was never able to attract an editor who wanted to acquire the books. So, like many of us listening to this podcast, when Kindle, the advent of Kindle, came out, and I thought, there's a real possibility here. I might be able to do something. So in 2012, I published the first 3 books, and they found an almost instant following, which was tremendously gratifying after so many years of struggle. So that encouraged me to continue writing in the series, which I did. Many things, of course, have changed in the landscape of self-publishing since then. We would be foolish to pretend that it's not more difficult and more competitive now than it was then.
Okay. Well, let me just, because we'll get on to where you are now in a moment. I'm fascinated by the fact that you created this website in 1998 and uploaded your books. I mean, talk about an early adopter. Because when we interview people in self-publishing and the early people, what early means is normally 2010 or 2011. So back in 98, you uploaded your books in what form? Just PDF?
As PDFs, yes. And I released them chapter by chapter. Originally, at that point, I still had a literary agent. And so my idea was, the word platform was a rather new one in those days. So I said, let's prove to editors, acquiring editors, that I have a platform. I'll do like Charles Dickens did and release a chapter, a month, and then, then you can go and say, oh, Octavia has, 5,000 readers, 10,000 readers, whatever, because I can prove my downloads. But it didn't work. I mean, I ended up, publishing all of book 1, then book 2, then book 3, to growing appreciation, but
a small audience. And you were putting the stuff on Octavia.net, but it was difficult for you to magnify it, to get visibility. You weren't advertising.
It did not matter to traditional publishers. I mean, and probably it even hurt me in retrospect, because at that point of view, even though I ended up with 100,000 readers in 125 nations, to them probably said, oh, well, it's spent. You've put it out there. We're not interested anymore. So I think it actually backfired.
Yeah. Well, they still think like that, so we can ignore the traditional publishers for this type of thing. So fast forward, I guess 10, 12 years, and the advent of the Kindle and the Amazon platform, and suddenly those things that you were trying 10 years before, you were able to find an audience.
Yes, because again, once the gatekeepers have been removed and we're able to put our books in front of an audience, you may find those people that share the passion for your topic, and you're able to create your own community. And that's what happened. Yeah.
And how quickly did things happen for you?
Back in 2014, I did a BookBub promotion, a feature. Back in the days when they were both very inexpensive and quite effective. And that was really helpful because I gave away 33,000 copies of book 1 in one day. And so that really gave me a leg up. That was very, very useful. But after that, of course, it's nurturing those people. Only a certain percentage of people who download are ever going to open the book, and then you've got to have something more for them to go to. They've not only going on to book 2, but there's got to be something larger to draw them in. Many people, of course, love the idea of a series. They want to be completely absorbed in the world you've created, and those are the readers that you're looking for.
Okay, so and I will come into that in a moment, because I know that you've developed, in terms of the relationship you have with your readers, very important part of your marketing. But let's keep the narrative so I can understand how you got to where you are today, because we should say where you are today. And I think you've been very public about your figures. It's been amazing. Has it not?
It's been extremely gratifying to be able to make a good income. My 20 2015 income was 33,000 US dollars. 2016 was 160,000. And last year was 237,000. And this year I shall certainly exceed that. So
that's fantastic, and it's a tribute to your writing, and that and those gatekeepers back in the mid '90s could have had 80% of that action, but they decided not to. Yes. So there you go. Who's having the last little laugh there? And we should mention, of course, far be it from me to bring Mr. Dawson and his courses into this, but that was, I think, a moment for you, wasn't it?
It was enormous, because without Mark's course, I never would have been convinced to join Facebook. I was not on the Facebook platform, and it was taking the course that convinced me I must do this. And so I joined. And I joined, faithfully went through Mark's teachings, put my first advertisement on Facebook on February 15th of 2016, and had some really remarkable success. It was essentially a sign-up ad giving away book one free. I rapidly built my mailing list to 33,000 people. And of course, even though there's a lot of drop-off between people who will not, in fact, read the book or continue on with you, it gave me a good core, a very, very good core. And of course, taught me the fundamentals of something that I had never anticipated using or knowing about, which is how to advertise in a very direct way to people who had reading interests similar to what I could provide them in my own books. So yes, it was enormous, absolutely enormous. And yes, Mark's course was a tremendous turning point for me, absolutely.
And what's your background? Because you took to this very easily, but I don't know whether you'd had marketing or technical background or.
I do have a very good technical manager, so who's my webmaster and who is enormously helpful in producing my videos and all of my ads and everything else. So I cannot take a lot of credit on the technical side, but I am a communicator, and I have always had a desire to tell. A desire to share my love of history and to tell stories, interweave personal stories in with actual history. And I think it's one of the reasons that people who, for instance, like Bernard Cornwell's books, also really like my books. We not only write about the same time period, but we actually use the actual history that's been received from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle to tell it. So we both have fictional characters interacting with factual characters. And there's a tremendous thirst for that. And so it's really what leads me on.
You say a tremendous thirst, but on the face of it, your genre sounds quite niche.
Yeah, historical fiction obviously does not have the legions of fans that romance or thrillers do. Completely true. What it does have is a quality of reader that is willing to pay more for what we produce. And that's very important to me. My most recent book, which came out in April, I priced at $9.99 for the ebook. It's considerably above what most people with their own imprints, most self-published writers will do. And my other books are largely $7.99. So I took a big risk. I have not heard one complaint about the price. Part of it is because the writers that I'm most often compared to, when their books come out in Kindle format, they're $13.99 US. So my book still looks of value priced. So that's an important aspect of it. But also, I just think that people are willing to pay for quality. And I do have the 7 books out now. It's a small number compared to many thriller and romance writers who have scores of books out. But I do believe that for me, the pathway is quality. I can't write more than 1 book a year, absolutely not. Usually every 18 months is all I can manage because of the amount of research and they're lengthy books. But it's the certain quality of reader that fortunately my genre enjoys, which is also very, very helpful to the bottom line.
And another platform that I know is doing well for you is the Audible platform. You mentioned before we started the interview that you really wanted to make the point to new authors, this is not to be ignored.
Yes, I think that it's so demanding when you're first starting out and have one or two books. Having them recorded as an audiobook is one of the things that almost seems a luxury, like having them in print. Neither are luxuries. They're really necessities. You must have print and you must have an audiobook, because that is the fastest growing aspect of all reading right now is audiobooks. It's my second largest source of income month after month after month. So I strongly encourage, even if you have one novel out, is to find a really skilled actor, pay them well, and have it produced, because you will find that reaps tremendous rewards.
Wow. And do you specifically advertise the Audible format, or is it just...
Yes, I'm running advertisement right now, featuring the Audible of the brand new book, which is the cover, which features the character's face on it, and it's a little tiny video that says, "Know him, hear him," and I talk about Nano Nagel, who's a Audie Award-nominated London actress who is the voice of the saga. In the ad copy, because of course people who listen to audiobooks or are interested in audiobooks care about that. They are partial to certain narrators, and they want to know that it's a distinguished narrator who's presenting the book to them. So yes, I do advertise specifically for audiobooks.
Yeah, narrators are important in audiobooks. I listen to a couple and you spend a lot of time with them.
Yes.
When you listen to.
Yes. And of course the other thing I should say to new authors is that my books are long. Historical fiction books are long. Recorded book one is 22 hours. Wow. My shortest book, I think, is 12 hours, something like that. When people are using their Audible credits, they get one credit a month, which is free in their $15 membership. They're not going to want to spend it on a book which is 40,000 words. I mean, my books are 175,000, 200,000 words. So a value aspect for the audio listener is, how long is this book? So keep that in mind. If your books are very short, maybe you want to put two of them together, book 1 and 2, to make it a more satisfying length for someone to use that credit on it. So do keep in mind that audio listeners are a little bit different in the way that they look at how they're spending their time and money. So long is beautiful if it's an audio.
Okay, so where you are now, so fantastic success, Octavia, and congratulations again, $250,000 a year and growing. Fascinated that you haven't done AMS ads yet, because it sort of feels to me that could be a really good area for you. You're not delved into AMS ads, Amazon Marketing Services?
No, I haven't.
Well, the course is sitting there ready for you because you've paid for it. So that's a module at some point.
And I need to revisit that because I do have writer friends who've had success. Right now, I'm deeply occupied. I'm speaking at DragonCon, so I'm writing that talk. I have other appearances to do. I'm in the middle of an international move.
Well, let's talk about your move, because this is really interesting. So a little bit of background about you. So you're living in the United States, but your books are set in Sweden and in particular in Gotland?
In Denmark, and because the Vikings were actually Danes, those that had the most impact on the British Isles, at least. So yes, so they're set throughout Scandinavia, but particularly Denmark and Gotland. So in 1999, I was on a very large research trip throughout Scandinavia and visited Gotland because it's a very important stop for Viking studies, because there's some unique artifacts that have been left there, these enormous standing stones, runic stones with wonderful pictures on them that tell us a lot about ship rigging and mythology and everything. So Gotland's a really important place for anybody who's interested in Norse life. So I went there for the first time in '99 and fell in love with it, the beauty of the island and everything about it seemed enchanted. So I kept returning there as a place to work, and a place for inspiration. And in the end of book 3, the surviving male and female protagonists end up living on Gotland. They arrive there. Gotland was a relative haven of peace and security in the 9th century, so it was a good place to get them out of the wars going on both in England and in Denmark. So I continued returning there, and then recently I've just felt, rather than going, renting homes and working, why not buy a home and move there full time? So I'm in the process of doing that, which is definitely a process. But I do now have a beautiful home in Visby, which is this UNESCO World Heritage Site town on the west coast of the island. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to live, and so I'm very happy to be able to return there.
That's amazing that
yes.
you're doing that and able to do that. I was thinking if you're a science fiction writer, you'll never really get the chance to live in the second B cyclone cluster,
right.
Or the outer spiral arm of the galaxy.
Likely Mars,
or even Mars, but maybe Mars. But you get a chance to go and live. You're obviously very familiar with the place, and you've been there quite a lot. But
yes.
Quite a culture change from the US.
Oh yes, of course. Yes.
But you're ready for it. Good. Well, and also we should say, if people are watching on YouTube, they can see how you're dressed. I'm assuming you don't wear this every day.
I am dressed very much like a character from my novels. This is a Norse gown. It's made out of linen. There's a linen shift underneath it, and then an overgown. The important bronze brooches. These have little freshwater pearls in them. So I'm dressed really like a character from my own novels. So
fantastic. And you have amazing hair as well, which I think
thank you.
Really goes to set that off. So well, thank you for taking the effort and doing that. And you're obviously immersed in your stories. I sense that you think about them a lot, probably doing all the mundane things that we do, like driving to the supermarket. I can imagine you thinking through your stories quite a lot. I don't know if I'm right on that. But one thing that's important for you is that type of feeling from your reader as well. I think you engender that immersion into the stories from your readers, and that relationship you have with your readers, I know you're very proud of, and you believe it's an important part of your success.
Building community is the one thing that really has, I think, been the most satisfying aspect for me. I have 23,000 followers on Facebook, but it's my group. There's a dedicated fan group with now about 1,800 people on it, and those core readers are extremely dear to me and tremendous brand ambassadors. And I'm so honored and delighted to have so many people who read and reread the books and talk to other people about them. And I can't emphasize enough to people just starting out that a community can give you things that no level of advertising can ever give you. There is no substitute for word of mouth recommendation. None.
It's the best, isn't it?
None. And you've got it when you have people writing to you who are saying, my husband told me I had to read your books. My sister told me I had to read your books. Then you know it's really working. I do spend a tremendous amount of time every day. It's a huge commitment. 2 to 3 hours every single day, 7 days a week. I answer every comment on every ad and on my page and in my fan pages and my email. I spend a tremendous amount of time interacting with my readers, and it is a joy, but it is demanding. That time commitment is something that's so well spent because people are invested in the story in a way because they understand that you care about the world that you've created for them. And the sort of friendships that are formed in the Saga group on Facebook are fantastic. I mean, we've had just an amazing group of men and women in that group that are just, so tight and so behind the books and supportive of each other, and it's priceless. So build community by all means. The other thing I really want to stress is that, like Neil Gaiman, who's oftentimes said, he realizes that his fan base is made up of many small cult groups of people that maybe don't have a lot to do with each other. You have to find your fan base where they are. I'm astonished that DragonCon asked me to come and speak, because there's no fantasy elements in my novels. And it wasn't until one of my readers said to me, who's a big, very large into cosplay and DragonCon, she said, Octavia, the reason we want you there is because you can tell us what really happened, because we need to create our world based on historical facts, so it has more veracity.
Well, there's a huge crossover, isn't it? The wargaming,
yes.
A lot of wargaming is based on World War II or medieval wars.
That's right.
So yes, I can see why
this is a whole new, it's opened my eyes. It's opened my eyes because I was never aware that I had so many readers that also are fantasy readers. That's an example of a group of people that I didn't even know that were loving my books. My meticulously researched, historically sound books are very popular with certain segments of fantasy readers. So look for those little niches. They may be vertical niches, but you put enough of those together, you have a real large readership. So I would ask people, be mindful of that.
That you don't even know is there. And again, this is a difference, I think, with the traditional industry where it's worked in the past, so they wouldn't necessarily know who the readers were. Yes. And certainly that's much more feasible today to work that out.
You absolutely can find people much easier now.
And that work you do to respond to every comment, wherever it is on the various platforms, I suppose a little personal contact from you can go a long way with an individual reader.
It's huge. I mean, again, because people understand that I care. I care about their reading experience. I care to make sure that they get book one for free and there's no hitches there. They know that I am interested in their reading experience, and and every single person I interact with, if I feel it's appropriate, I will say, please stop by the group and see if you'd like to join that, because there's all kinds of special exclusives I do for the group, special videos and special content for people that are in the Saga group, so that there's a real inducement for people to want to join. And of course, you can communicate much better on Facebook with a group than you can in your ordinary page these days. So because there's almost no organic reach anymore on the page, but in the group, it's a really direct conduit. So I'm always inviting people to do that, and they're joined constantly. So the group's grown quite rapidly.
And you use live video?
Oh yes, and do fun things. Last month, I have a superb partner in Nano Nagel, who is the voice of the Saga. She has recorded all the audiobooks. And we had her live, Facebook Live, in the group. And so all of my audio listeners, all the audiobook people could speak to us live. And that was fantastic. I mean, people really enjoyed knowing about Nano and how she records the books, how we met, and so on and so forth. So that, yes, there's all sorts of special things that you can do in a group that adds value to it and cements that relationship so that people want to identify as your reader.
You've checked the broadband connection in Gotland?
It's excellent.
Good.
It's Sweden.
Swedish. Do you remember? We filmed in Gothenburg once, and I remember sitting in the hotel. This was probably 6 years ago, and I couldn't believe the broadband. So I remember now. Right. Sweden's very good.
That's important for me.
Yes, I was going to say, because here you are sitting in clothing that could have been worn 1,000 years ago, but actually you're immersed in the very leading area of digital.
One needs to be.
Yeah.
A worldwide following. I mean, I have many readers in Australia. And that's also been very interesting to me as well. So, when I'm there, I'm in a better time zone to talk to them. So
yeah, maybe the newer the country, the more interest there is.
Yes,
the past
I think that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we should just mention the DragonCon. This invitation that's been extended to you. This is for people who may have heard of Comic-Con and DragonCon, but these are big events, right?
Yes, they are. It's wonderful exposure for me and for the Saga. So I'm extremely excited and interested to find out what the experience will be like. And I again, they're inviting me to speak on women's legal rights in the 9th century. So
quite niche.
Yes, quite a niche, and I'll be pricking a few balloons about the sort of media presentations, the Hollywood presentations of what we think Norse women were doing vis-a-vis television series like The Vikings and so on and so forth, and really injecting a note of reality into what women's roles were like. So it's going to be provocative, and I think it's going to be a great deal of fun.
You know how many people go to DragonCon?
I have been warned 80,000.
Yeah. This is a big event. Well done on being invited there, because it's going to be fantastic. And that's
Thank you.
In Atlanta later this year?
Yes, it's over Labor Day weekend, 4 days, at the first weekend in September. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, you do a lot of this work by yourself. You mentioned that you have some technical help. You've hired in some professional help here and there. So tell me how that works and how much you do yourself.
Well, obviously, no one can research, write the books, or interact with the public except for myself, because I couldn't even have a virtual assistant do what I do, because oftentimes they ask questions that only I could answer, either about the books or some aspect of history. So I do all of that. I have a very good professional book cover designer. Of course, we all know that that's very, very important. And I've already mentioned my wonderful artistic partnership with Nano Nagel, who does my voice work for the audiobooks. And other than that, it is a technical manager who really helps with the advertisements.
How much does the technical manager do? Because you must write them and source the imagery.
Yes.
So you have somebody basically.
A lot of the imagery are things like right now I'm running a short video ad of me dressed in this ensemble in front of a medieval wall in Gotland, and talking about the latest novel. So a lot of times it's not a stock image, it's me as the image. And so those are the sorts of advertisements I'm running, that's sort of a combination of branding and the book as well. So it's putting yourself out there so they can associate your name with the book series.
And you do the video yourself, or you have somebody who films you? Or?
Yes, it's a combination of setting it in a tripod and letting it run, and also help. On Gotland, I always have help. So
you're not afraid to get involved in any aspect of this yourself, are you? Which I love.
One must be fearless if one wants to be successful.
Well, you have been fearless and successful. That could be your motto. You have to find new readers as well through advertising, as well as your word of mouth, and that Facebook ads is the platform that you're most involved with. Yes,
and of course through using the interest filters and finding authors that are similar to what you think your readers are reading.
Which you're discovering all the time is not necessarily what you thought.
That's true. So that's again, not be afraid to poke and prod a little bit in those categories, because you may find that you may think of your books as one breed of cat, but they may be quite different to another reader, and that is something that really bears some reflection on. That you may have several vertical niches there that you can join together as one big group of your readership.
Do you experiment with the interests and authors?
Yes, of course, and experiment with different types of ads and creative dynamic, and all the different features that they're doing. My Facebook rep is always stressing to me that everything changes every 28 days, and I don't think everything changes, but obviously people's habits change. There's new people on Facebook or more active on Facebook. So month to month, things that have worked well one month, you need to retool. It's constant experimentation. And the one constant, again, is trying to build your group on Facebook and nurture that group so that they will go out and also be your acolytes.
You're in that group every day?
Oh, many times a day, yes. Yeah. Many times a day, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What a world of difference from a traditionally published author from 10 years ago or 20 years. And I think a lot of the best authors I think about the Stephen Kings and the Douglas Adams in my case, people I've admired over the years. I think they would absolutely love the world that is possible today. Yes. This constant contact with readers, it just wasn't possible in the past.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing. And I get the feeling now that I think you alluded to this earlier, that some of the storylines in your books and where your characters are going to go and what's going to happen next are inspired and influenced by feedback from your readers.
Absolutely. And that's really fascinating for me, because when you are in close communication with them and they begin asking, I want to know about this character. What was her backstory? I mean, the most recent book is the origin story of the lead male character, Sidrock. And so people were fascinated with that. And then they're saying, well, we want to know about this person or this. And so it's really intriguing to me that oftentimes secondary characters are not at all secondary to your readers. And you wouldn't know that unless they're telling you that. And if you make it possible for them to communicate with you directly, you learn all kinds of valuable feedback and inspiration, as well as just the pleasure you get from communicating with them and enjoying the fact that they're deriving pleasure from your creativity. That's a tremendous reward in itself. It truly, truly is.
That's great, Octavia, and it's really interesting to hear how you've how hard you've worked at building that community and how much I think you enjoy it. You seem to enjoy it. Doesn't sound like a chore.
Yes, no, it is. It's tremendously demanding, but it's hugely rewarding. Absolutely, and I'm now at the position where, not only am I being asked for more appearances, but production companies have expressed interest. So it's getting to another level now.
Well, you mentioned the Vikings, the TV series, Game of Thrones, of course. Game of Thrones is a great example of the mixture of fantasy and historical fiction, because it looks very historical, as if it could be based on Saxon England and
Cornwall's The Last Kingdom would be probably a better example of something that the saga would be made into. But yes, so that is really, it's a whole nother level. So I have a lot of attorneys now.
Well,
an entertainment attorney in LA and international.
You're in Boston. It's like the home of law in America. You're in the right place. Well, you're dressed for the part for the first auditions.
Yes.
If you don't get a cameo in your own TV series, I'll be very disappointed. Octavia, it's been absolutely tremendous talking to you. You've been a name we've been very familiar with from the very early days of SPF, and Mark was thrilled when you wrote to him and said to him, Mark, I want you to know what's happened to my career since I took your course, which was a lovely email to get, and you've been quoted, I think.
Thank you, Mark.
It's a shame he's not here. He's going to be down the road in New York next week if you get a chance. But it's thrilling to come out here and meet you. I want to wish you good luck with your move to Gotland.
Thank you. It's very exciting for me, and thank you so much for your interest. And I hope that I've shared something of value to listeners and some encouragement as well. So stay strong, keep writing, build community.
There you go, remarkable. I really enjoyed it. We had lunch with her afterwards and spent some, best part of a day with Octavia. And it's a beautiful part of New England, actually. I'd not really visited before up there in the United States. But she's going to be off to Gotland in Sweden and is going to live there. And the other thing that we touched on in the interview, which I probably didn't touch on enough, is she's a great user of video, Octavia, and she does a huge amount talking directly to her readers, which again is a real trait of independent writers, I think, much more than traditional.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'd struggle to find any traditional authors who use some of the tools that are available to us now. So, no, good for her. And also, I remember Octavia posting her early results in the Facebook group. I think it must be the second time we launched the course, and she'd gone. She was doing like $30,000 a month after a high of $800 or $900 a month. So it was, she was really fantastic, and also a great example of not the biggest niche in the world. It just goes to show that with targeted social media and digital advertising, you can find plenty of readers for whatever it is that you're writing, regardless of the size of the niche.
Yeah, absolutely. So Octavia's now knocking on $300,000 a year doing what she loves, and boy does she love it, and boy is she good at it. So we could not be happier for Octavia, and invited to one of the big cons, the Comic-Con type thing. I think it was Epic Con, was it? Or Dragon Con she was invited, which is huge, and great for her. So we're so excited. And yeah, you can get a piece of this action as well. As Mark said at the beginning, the course is being reopened again. The course that has changed lives without question. You can read all about it, see if it's going to be right for you if you go to selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. And that's all letters. There's none of that digit 4 in the middle. selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. And there's lots of information about the course, including, I think, probably somewhere buried on that page is a dip inside one of the actual sessions, so you can get a good idea of that. Now, whilst we're on, I should say that we have shifted our advice about YouTube ads, because it's been increasingly clear over the last probably 13, 14 months when this began with Google that they have made changes to the AdWords platform, particularly for YouTube advertising, that has made it more difficult for smaller organizations to make a profit using ads. And the long and short of it, without going into the details, I've written quite a long detailed post into our Facebook groups, but the long and short of it is that one-man bands and low-priced items are going to really struggle to make a profit on YouTube, and because they've just set the bar too high to be able to get hold of the good stuff, like uploading audience data, like linking back to your own domain rather than a generic domain. And you can't do any of these things unless you've got 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 views, which is a non-starter for most people who start out on YouTube. So we're going to say, and we say this robustly, having done lots of testing, that it's really not worth using the paid ads platform for books at the moment until things change. However, YouTube is an incredibly fertile place to find your audience, engage your readers, and turn your readers into fans and your fans into super fans. And so that's where we're changing our focus. And part of the Ads for Authors course will be a very exciting, very comprehensive, dynamic new module on using YouTube and really unleashing the power of YouTube for authors. We can't wait. That's going to come online towards the end of this year, January at the very latest. And I can't wait to see that. Okay, that's all inside Ads for Authors. If you want to have a look at the course, selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. And that's it for this week, Mark. I'm about to get on a plane and go to the US. I need some sun. It's grey and drizzly here, so I'm going to go into the 28 degrees of the Nevada desert. And you are going to just continue to talk into your microphone and bash books out, I guess is what you're doing at the moment.
Well, it's raining here. I'm going to be walking into the office in a minute and doing some preparation for the course launch next week. So I'm pretty busy for the next... Well, I'm always busy, but I'm even more busy than normal for the next week or so.
Yeah. We shouldn't go into too much detail because it's a quite complex subject, but I know you've really got your teeth into AMS ads at the moment, and that's one of the big, exciting developing areas for the coursework.
Yeah, I'm in the next 2 or 3 days. I'll be re-recording the entire module on Amazon ads. It's a very important area. We all need to be on Amazon ads for a number of different reasons. Organic reach is being reduced, I think deliberately reduced by Amazon, and being replaced by sponsored posts and sponsored reach. So we need to be on top of this, and that's what I'm going to be trying to do in the revamped course. I'm getting lots of success with Amazon ads at the moment, and looking forward to sharing some of those tips and practices with students inside Ads for Authors.
Excellent. Great. Okay, look, we'll both enjoy the rain and enjoy NaNoWriMo. We're going to be with you mentally every step of the way, and I'm going to be with you as well doing that. So I shall keep you updated during November with my own progress, and look forward to quoting some of your successes or otherwise the realities of NaNoWriMo as you post into our group and our Facebook groups. Great. That's it for this week. Have a really brilliant week. We should say that the course is going to be open for a couple of weeks minimum, might go maximum to 3 weeks, but you're probably advised to get in early if you want a slot. And that's it. Have a great week. Can't wait to talk to you next Friday. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingformula.com for more information, show notes, and links on today's topics. You can also sign up for our free video series on using Facebook ads to grow your mailing list. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.